The morning my wife Nicole departed for what she called her much-needed girls' trip, our two children stood on the front porch, waving enthusiastically with innocent, bright smiles lighting up their faces. She bent down, pulled them into quick, tight hugs, promised to bring back the best souvenirs, and then climbed into the waiting taxi without so much as a backward glance. To any neighbor watching, we must have looked like over the past several months. Nicole had grown distant and secretive. She was always glued to her phone, texting someone whose name she would never mention. She started working late nights, guarding her device like a precious secret, and would lash out angrily whenever I dared to ask even the simplest questions. Every time I expressed concern, she twisted the narrative until I was somehow the villain, jealous, insecure, controlling. I wanted desperately to believe her explanations because I still loved our family deeply. But as I watched that taxi disappear down the quiet suburban street, a heavy, cold feeling settled deep in my chest. Something told me this wasn't really a girl's trip at all. The first 2 days after she left were eerily quiet. Nicole barely responded to my messages, yet her social media was constantly active. She posted beautiful photos of sun-kissed beaches, elegant rooftop restaurants with ocean views, colorful cocktails glowing in the sunset, and sparkling infinity pools at luxury resorts. At first, everything appeared perfectly normal for a vacation. But the more I looked, the more something felt off. In several different pictures, the same man kept appearing in the background. Sometimes he stood near the pool, pretending to look at his phone. Other times he walked just a few steps behind her, close enough to suggest familiarity. It seemed too consistent to be mere coincidence. Then, late on the second evening, one of Nicole's friends accidentally posted a short video before quickly deleting it. I managed to watch it in those few minutes it was live. In the clip, Nicole was smiling radiantly at that same man, her arms wrapped around his neck as she pulled him in for a long, passionate kiss. My whole body went numb. The suspicion I had carried for months suddenly crystallized into undeniable proof. I sat alone in our dimly lit living room the entire night, replaying that video again and again until the images burned into my mind. Anger surged through me first, hot and sharp. Then came a deep, aching sadness. Finally, a heavy wave of disappointment washed over everything. 11 years of marriage, love, shared dreams, and struggles, reduced to ashes in a few careless seconds captured on someone else's phone. The next morning, Nicole's best friend called me privately. Her voice was shaky and filled with guilt. She apologized repeatedly before confirming what I already knew. This had never been a girl's vacation. Nicole had carefully planned the entire trip so she could spend uninterrupted time with the man from the video. Several of her close friends had known about the affair for months, but had assumed I was already aware. The betrayal cut even deeper, knowing that others had been keeping her secret while I lived in complete darkness. Despite the devastating pain, I refused to drag our children into the mess. When they asked why mommy wasn't answering their video calls, I kept my voice steady and told them she was simply very busy enjoying her trip. I shielded them from the truth. Children deserve to feel safe and loved, not to carry the weight of their parents' broken choices. While they played happily in the backyard that afternoon, laughing and chasing each other, I quietly contacted a divorce attorney and began gathering financial records in silence. Every document I reviewed and every paper I signed felt like a knife twisting in my heart. Yet each one also reminded me of a painful truth. I couldn't control Nicole's decisions, but I could control how I responded to them. For the first time in months, I stopped clinging to false hope and started preparing for the reality I had to face. On the fourth afternoon, my phone finally rang. Nicole's name flashed across the screen. I let it ring several times before answering. She sounded light and cheerful, almost carefree. "Hey honey," she laughed softly. "I'm actually getting a little bored here. I miss the kids so much already." Her words stunned me. She spoke as if nothing had changed, as if she hadn't spent the past days in another man's arms. I stayed silent for a long moment, then replied calmly, "The kids accidentally saw the video that was posted online. They're confused and really hurt. Right now they don't want to talk because they don't understand what they saw." The line went deathly silent. I could hear her breathing quicken. "What video?" she whispered, panic creeping into her voice. "Who saw it? How many people know?" Her questions weren't about our marriage, my pain, or our family. They were only about protecting her secret. I explained that one of her friends had posted it briefly before deleting it. She immediately started crying, insisting it meant nothing, that it was just a stupid mistake, a misunderstanding. She begged me not to judge her until she got home. But the real problem wasn't one impulsive kiss. It was the months of lies, secrecy, and planning that led up to that moment. Some betrayals happen in seconds. Others are built carefully over time. Within minutes, my phone began exploding with missed calls, desperate texts, and tearful voice notes. She pleaded with me to pick up. She wrote that she loved the children more than anything and couldn't stand the thought of disappointing them. When I finally answered one last call, I told her gently, "The kids don't hate you. They're just hurt and confused. They need honesty, not excuses." She sobbed uncontrollably and promised to fly home immediately. Before ending the call, I added quietly, "You should come home. We have much bigger things to discuss than this vacation." She didn't ask what I meant. I think she already knew. Nicole arrived home nearly 3 days earlier than planned. She rushed through the front door, expecting the usual warm welcome, our children running into her arms with joy. Instead, they stayed close to me, quiet and uncertain. They weren't angry, just deeply confused. Nicole knelt down on the floor, hugged them gently, and whispered apologies for making choices that had hurt our family. That night, after the children were sound asleep, she finally admitted everything. The affair had been going on for nearly 8 months. The so-called girls' trip was planned specifically so she could spend time alone with him. Listening to her confession was painful, but by then it no longer shocked me. I had already accepted the truth in my heart. When she finished speaking, I placed a folder on the dining table. She glanced down and instantly recognized the words on the cover, "Divorce petition." Her hands began to tremble violently. "Please," she whispered through fresh tears, "don't do this." She promised to end the affair immediately, quit her job if needed, and spend the rest of her life working to regain my trust. Months earlier, I might have believed her. But trust that is shattered cannot be rebuilt with promises made only after being caught. Looking into her tear-filled eyes, I realized I wasn't even angry anymore. I was simply exhausted. Our marriage had died long before that vacation ever began. The phone call didn't destroy our family. Nicole's choices, made long before she dialed my number, did that. She had believed she could betray our marriage, enjoy her secret life, and return home as if nothing had changed. Instead, she learned that actions always carry consequences. The hardest part wasn't deciding to end the marriage. It was sitting with our children in the days that followed, carefully explaining that none of this was their fault. They deserved honesty without cruelty, stability, and 2 parents who would always put them first. As I watched them sleeping peacefully that night, their small faces soft and trusting, I made myself a silent promise. No matter how difficult the road ahead became, I would spend every single day ensuring they never doubted how deeply and unconditionally they were loved. Sometimes the strongest thing a parent can do is not to save a failing marriage, but to protect their children from growing up inside one.